What does it take to close 52 loans in 1 month as a loan officer for a guy who's under 30? We interviewed his coach, Chris Welton. He talks about how people carry the adversity backpack and how people aren't taking action, consistent action on the things that are getting them business. And he's talking about his young clients who are crushing it and giving real world examples of what they do. Stay tuned for this great edition of the Loan Officer Mastermind. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Loan Officer Mastermind. I am so excited for our guest this week. But before I bring him on, I've got to just clear a little groundwork. As you all know now, we are available on all podcast platforms. We love that you're there, but I realize you're not just clicking that little button. It's so easy that just says rate with 5 stars. You literally click it. They don't make you even say anything. That's like leaving a review. You could do that too, but we were lucky. We picked up a bunch of reviews this week. Or I guess 5 stars this week. So if you could help us with that, that would be fabulous. I'm Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon. I've been doing this for 10 years with Dave Savage, and who's not here today, but with half of that time with none other than Deborah Byrd, the CEO and founder of Plug and Play SM. What is up, Deborah? Listen, that's a great way to put it. You have succeeded in that self-appointed role that you gave yourself to add a little bit of cool vibe to our experience. So we're grateful for you.
Some Deb sauce. There we go.
Yep. And those of you who are listening, she is Texas out today. You got a Texas hat on. I like that.
Yes,
Run the dang
Friday.
ball.
Preseason, got the first season game coming up. So yeah, run the dang ball and let's go Cowboys.
Yeah, we'll see that. I'm super excited for today's guest. He's someone I first met on a plane. Got to hang out with him in a maybe there's a plane theme. I got to hang out with him when we were in DC with First Home IQ this year on Capitol Hill at the Air and Space Museum. Just really a great story of someone who has really built not just a great business, but a great life and really continues to pour into others. He's got a really original name to his coaching company, Chris Welton Coaching. Welcome, Chris Welton.
Thank you so much. This is the 3rd time I've been on, which is really cool, right? I can't,
You passed the test.
I greatly appreciate that because it's an honor to be on I believe, the top podcast in the industry. So, and I even have one of those podcasts and I rate you higher than mine. So there's that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on today, guys. I can't wait to break down some new stuff that we've been working on. And Deborah, I always love talking with you. You and I have talked multiple times, so we always have great conversations.
Yes. Well, so Todd, how do you want to kick it off?
As I say, you're asking the same question I was going to ask. All right, Chris, where do you want to start today? I mean, I know you've got a book coming out. I know you've got your adversity capacity index. Like, bring us down the path.
Yeah.
How should we start today?
Yeah. So we have another book coming out in September that took me 1.5 years to write, which is a long time. I wrote One Jordan in about 6 months. This one took about 1.5 years. It went to the publisher last week, the editor last week, and then yesterday they emailed back and they loved everything about it. So the name of the book is called Adversity is the Assignment. And the main reason I wrote the book was I feel like a lot of people get into adverse situations and they freeze, right? They're stuck there and they don't know the way out, or they don't even know what it means to be stuck where they're at. So the first thing we did in writing the book is we created what's called the adversity paradigm. And inside the adversity paradigm, there's 4 different mindsets that you have they're natural mindsets to you that you have when adversity hits. And the first one is the victim mindset. The second one is the survivor. Like, I can get through anything. I'm a survivor. The warrior is the mindset where, hey, adversity hits me, I want to fight back, right? Mm-hmm. And then the final one is the architect. How can I take this adversity and turn this into something good for me and build a foundation for my life to be better? And as I was going through all these different things, the cool part is that each one in there has a personal story on how I showed up differently in my life in each one of these areas, right? So you get to see real stories back behind what this was about and why it was created. The main reason, though, I created it was after my son CJ passed, I felt incredibly alone. I was, when a child passes or you lose a child, the mother gets a lot of attention from everybody, rightfully so, but dads are on their own. There wasn't much, right? And so I wanted to write this book to make sure people understood they weren't alone when they were in adversity situations, especially stuff like that or anything else. And that's kind of where the whole theme started.
So is that pretty common then that you see most people have all four of those parts of the paradigm in their life?
So the cool thing is we created what's called the Adversity Capacity Index, and you can take that assessment at adversitycapacityindex.com. It'll give you what your natural state is, how you naturally show up in adverse situations, and the information will come back to you. And what that does is it lets you know that when something bad's going to happen or when you're facing adversity, my natural instinct is to take the victim mindset. Okay, so how do I address that to be better, right? How do I do that to know that victim is not where I should be in this space? So I think everybody has the capabilities of going from one to the other all the way to architect. But as soon as you know what your natural state is, you can get to that next state a lot faster.
So is it fair to say that just because you go through maybe a lot of adversity, it doesn't necessarily mean you're equipped to take on maybe the warrior or architect paradigm? Simply just because you're going through hard things doesn't mean those hard things help build your capacity necessarily.
Exactly. It doesn't mean that you haven't learned, have you learned the lessons from those hard things to be better when the adversity shows back up? But the other thing it does though, too, is it compresses the time, Deborah, you spend in those areas. Once you know it, where you're at, you won't spend as much time in there, right? You won't be frozen in the victim mindset, right? And we all know people that have been frozen in the victim mindset for 50 years, right? I mean, I have relatives, I could say she's been a victim as long as I've known her, right? And just because they don't know a path out, right? They don't know that there's other things they could be focused on.
So if you had to give like a quick micro example of each one so that the audience listening could self-identify, maybe, I know they need to go and take the index, but if you had like one sentence next to victim, survivor, warrior, architect, what would be your sentence?
Yeah, I would say that the victim is, it always happens to me. Why is stuff always bad? Would be the kind of the space for that. The survivor is, I've been through some bad things before and I'll just sit here until it passes. The warrior is, I'm not going to sit here. I'm going to challenge this adversity and try to push through it and grow from it. And then the architect is, this is a lesson, an opportunity to learn something to prepare me for the next time something happens and to build a better foundation on it.
Seems like the architect is a great opportunity for people to learn how to do that. I don't know that most people are thoughtful enough to spend the time after they've gone through something, had a bad week, had something more serious happen, where they go, gosh, you know what can I learn from that? And how can I make sure in the future I can charge through it faster or avoid it?
Yeah.
What's your advice to people on how to, on that?
Yeah, I think it's just as important as anything else in your life, understanding that adversity is going to happen. And it's a lesson that I need to learn to prepare myself to be better for next week. And most of you on this call are leaders in some fashion, whether it's you're leading a team or you're leading your clients to the closing table or you're a parent. Like, how much better are you going to show up for them if you had an understanding that this is something that's definitely going to happen? We're going to face adverse situations, but now I have some tools to process it. Now I have some tools to get through and understand what it really means.
So your book will give those tools, I'm assuming, is the lesson you're walking us down. And so I love that. And I think it's always great when someone's got the examples, especially self-examples, right? I mean, it's what I love about you. You've always openly shared about things. And I think that that's super helpful for people to grow, whether they've been through similar situations or not. I think it's an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the other things that we have in the book, and it's something I'm actually going to talk to Carmel High School football this afternoon, which is a football program that I've been working with for about 18 months now. And one of my favorite days of the year is to go and talk to those kids for an hour before the season kicks off. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is what I call the adversity backpack. And I actually did a TED talk on this topic. And the adversity backpack is, we all have one. We didn't ask for it, right? We all have this backpack that everything that's bad's happened to us is stuck in this thing. And a lot of us, it weighs us down and keeps us from making other decisions or taking risks. And what most of us don't do is put receipts of our wins in the backpack with it, right? That's a win. That's a win. So the next time you're challenged, you can reach in the backpack and pull out proof that you've been here before, right? We've been through tough things before. And whether it's in life or in business, or today when I talk to these young men in sports, they lost 5 top-tier Division I players last year. I'm talking 5 big-name players. Okay. Their quarterback's at Boston College. He was the all-time leading passer at the school. They have a defensive end that's going to start as a true freshman at Oklahoma, right? I mean, these are stud players. So what we have to remember is what else can we bring to the table? What have we accomplished in the past before, right? Like, what have we gotten through? So we're really going to dig into that today at the meeting.
And this is at the high school that you're doing this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Adversity backpack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I like the idea too. So do the receipts offset the weight of the backpack? Do they make it lighter, or you just use the receipts in the future when you run into that adversity again to prove to yourself you can get through it?
Yeah. I think that, I don't know if they're going to make it lighter. I think it makes you stronger, right? Like, it's that whole thing. I don't want it to be easier. I want to be better. But not only are the wins receipts, the bad things you've gotten through in the past are proof too, right? Because everything bad that's ever happened to you, if you're on this call, you survived it, right? You survived it. So, and what we talk about is getting through adversity, not overcoming it. Because if I overcome something, I move on. If I get through something, it becomes part of me, makes me stronger, makes me more dominant, right? Makes me ready to do things. Like Todd, today, we just talked before the call came on. You were F45 today, right? Like,
Yep.
And you pushed yourself, right? Like you pushed yourself. And if you would have gotten stuck somewhere along the way, you would have said, oh, I've been through this before, right? I can draw strength from the past workout. And then you run home from the gym, which is like super crazy. I drive, but like, that's up to you. But like, but you've been there before, right? Like you can pull things from the past to get through that.
Yeah, well, the bottom line is this, right? We're all undefeated. We've all made it through, and you're wearing that shirt today. So I was like, all right, what a
Yeah.
perfect,
Yeah.
I always love that. I think that's a piece of it, right? Especially, our core audience here are loan officers, and the fact that you're still here, if you're brand new, you've started in a tough market. If you've been here, you've come through a few years of a tough market. And what I've seen is, we've interviewed so many people this year, Deborah and I, that are having, maybe some record years period overall business, but a lot just really their best year, like outside of just the COVID years, which were kind of the unicorn, not probably gonna, I don't know, maybe unless we had 2% rate someday because something really bad happens in the world, which I hope not. We're never going to be refinancing the 50% of people who paid cash and have super low rates.
I can't help but think, and just to play a little bit devil's advocate here, for the loan officers who are listening and thinking, man, Chris, like I've been pushing through for 3 years. Like I've been showing up every morning. I've been working really hard, and I've tried to learn from each lesson that's come my way, but the results still aren't where I need them to be. And I'm working harder than I ever have. Like where's the light at the end of the tunnel? Like, how do I keep pushing? And also to that, they could feel like I'm just enduring stress. Like, I don't know if I'm actually getting better or my capacity is growing. Like, are there behaviors to identify to this? And what would you tell that person who's like, man, it's been brutal?
That's a great question, Deborah. I mean, I know there are some people out there that are struggling. It's been a tough few years. There are. But there's a lot of people that are winning at a big level, on a high level. Like one of my clients closed 52 deals as a solo loan officer last month, 52 deals in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So like there's opportunity. Maybe the work you're doing is in the wrong area, right? Maybe you need an environment change. And I'm not saying go change companies, but maybe you do need to change. Maybe you need to look at something different when it comes to that. Because we've had several of our clients pivot this year and go heavy non-QM from other things they're doing. And I've got multiple guys tracking to close over 100 million that we coach. And they've pivoted to the non-QM space from other areas. So I would, my first question is if one of my clients says, hey, I'm really putting in the work, I'd want to know, are you really? Show me what your work is. Because your definition of work may be different than mine. Right? Maybe you need someone to help you get clarity on what the work really needs to be. It's easy for me to say, hey, I really worked my tail off today. But did you? Did you give 100%? Did you do everything you could to grow and find a different way to be competitive in whatever market it is? Because I was in the middle. I mean, I had a front row seat in the mortgage meltdown, right? I was there. I had countless wires not show up to deals I was trying to get funded. We had our warehouse lines was with GMAC. One day we had a warehouse line, the next day we didn't. That was tough. That was incredibly difficult. Like there was literally websites called mortgageimplosion.com. Like we would look every morning to see if a bank we were doing business with was out of business, right, Todd? Like,
Those are the good old days. I'm just
yeah,
laughing. Like, yeah, the
but that's
implosion meter.
yeah, but that's real stuff. And I think that a lot of people right now say, well, I'm working really hard. Well, you're working hard like you did during COVID, right? But it's different. It's a different work. If you're doing what you did during COVID, you're not going to win today. It's just not going to happen. And a lot of us have gotten spoiled. Like we talk about that. And here it is. It's 2026. That was 5 years ago. If you're still talking about the numbers you did in COVID, you're that guy who's 40 years old talking about that touchdown you made in high school. It's over. Like we need to move on to something else, right? So it's interesting because a lot of my clients I work with right now are under the age of 30. They're under the age of 30 and they're doing 100 million in business, right? They look at things differently. They're seeking help. They're seeking coaching. They're getting mentors. They're doing all these different things. And then they're doing the extra work required to be great. I don't know if that's the answer you want, Deborah, or not, but that's
no, I think it was super profound and very relevant for right now. And I'm thinking of the loan officer today who's been in it for 20 years and they've climbed that mountain and they know how hard it was to climb that mountain. And they could be sitting there thinking, man, I've got maybe 5-10 years left. And they're looking back like, I just don't know if I have the same energy and even passion maybe to relearn, unlearn, sharpen my tools, because the next version is going to require, maybe some work. And that may start with some internal work, but they just don't know if they want to do it.
Well, make that decision today. Because if we're going to work every day and we're not passionate about showing up and we don't have something we can connect to that makes us want to show up and be great, then you should do something else. I mean, you just should. Why put yourself through that? That's like some of the craziest stuff ever. It's like having a bad marriage. What are you doing? Like, you can get divorced, like you can leave, right? So like, it's the same thing. If you're in the mortgage space and you feel that way, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I've got several of my friends that are a little bit younger than me, close to my age. I'm 53, that have been in the business a long time, and they're having record massive years. So what's the difference between them and you? Well, a guy asked me on a podcast yesterday, he said, Chris, what's the difference between the top people you coach and the people that are like kind of in the middle? I said, the top people my coach are consistently consistent. They take action every day to grow their business. No matter what it is, they're always working on something to grow their business. I mean, the guy who closed 52 deals last month, my client in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I had to make him celebrate. Like he didn't want to celebrate. He wanted to tell me all the things that were wrong with the process. I had to make this kid celebrate. 52 deals, and they were all non-QM. Every deal was non-QM.
It's,
Right.
I mean, I love the thing consistently consistent. Deborah and I talked about it. We've got another podcast called the Win Now podcast where we talk general sales as opposed to necessarily loan officer specific, although we tend to drift that way. So,
Sure.
And they're shorter. They're typically 15 to 25 minutes. And we talk a lot about, there's a few recurring themes this year, right? One is the curse of knowledge. So when I hear a 30-year-old, that's someone under 30 crushing it, it's because they don't have the curse of the knowledge that everyone else has about how easy it was. So they just come in and they know they got to work hard. So I love that. Then they're consistently going out there and working on their business every day, even when they don't want to. And I've been working with a real estate team, big real estate team with a great leader. He's early 30s. He's just really a great person. And they're seeing that they're agents who put in 50% more activity. So they got a minimum standard, number one, as a company. If you're not hitting the minimum standard, then you're out. Number two is they notice that the people who are actually doing 50% more than the minimum standard are actually, and by the way, the minimum standard gets them about $100,000 of income every year. So that's kind of what every agent says, how much you want to make. They say, I want to make 100 grand. So they're like, okay, if you actually work this hard and do this many things, we've proven it over the last few years, you're going to make 100 grand. But what they're finding is the people who are doing 50% more work are actually making triple the income. And so I love that idea. It's pushed me up. I've been pushing my team for the last couple of weeks since I saw their results. I'm like, it's real estate. We could probably do that in mortgage too. We can push up our activity. And so It's been kind of funny. It's really weird. I talked to 50% more realtors and my leads have tripled. It's not,
Oh
again,
yeah.
so it's not rocket science. But I'm doing it consistently. I'm doing it daily where I wasn't necessarily doing it. I was doing a number a week. I still talk to 50 agents a week, which is more than most of you are talking to. And I'm not even really trying to do loans, people, but it's crazy.
Wow, shots fired from Todd.
Man, you know what? Because it's every once in a while, you have that, Bill Hart calls it the grumpy old man on the lawn, watering his lawn. Every once in a while,
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And so I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask. So where's this guy in Milwaukee, Wisconsin getting 52 non-QM deals? What is he doing?
So he runs a Burr event every month.
Okay. I know what Burr means. Tell everyone else what it
Yep.
means.
So I may mess this up, but it's buy, rehab, refi, rent, I
Yep.
think.
I think you're
Right.
good.
So
Yep.
I think I got that right. And he's been just consistent with that messaging, consistent with going in those places. He runs this other thing called Caffeine and Cash Flow, which is once a month. And he
Are these
works.
live events,
Yes.
webinars?
No, they're live events. Like he rents out a restaurant. He rents out a restaurant for the event. This last month, his numbers were down. He had about 40 people show, but the month before it was sold out. I think he had right at 100 people show for the Burr event.
Wow.
And these are all leads. Like these are all people that want to do this, right? They're showing up and they want to do this. So he's known in the market as the best guy to go to learn those things. He does an incredible job with, if you come to him with one deal you're trying to put together and you've got these 2 or 3 other houses here that are paid off, he'll say, hey, why don't we DSCR these 3 other houses and get some cash and go buy some more properties? Like, how many times are you doing a 1003 with an investor and they've got 6 or 7 paid off properties and you're just ignoring it? Those are 6 or 7 opportunities, dude. Like crazy, right? Like, so he's just asking different questions and he's just going after it. Like he's really smart on what it takes to get these deals done and get them funded in a timely manner. And he crushes it. I mean, he works really hard. I finally got him to celebrate. Like I said yesterday, he sent me this text message late last night. He's having his whole team celebrate. Now his team's all over the country. He's in Milwaukee and he was having DoorDash delivered for lunch for all of them today so they could do like a celebratory lunch. And they're in all different states. But yeah, he just found a passion inside of that on helping people create wealth. And he understands the importance of it because he's done it himself. Multiple homes. He's got several doors that he owns. And it's so funny because it's like, we're on masterminds and he'll come on my mastermind because I have a mortgage mastermind that I run once a month for my VIP clients. And there's like, we'll have 8 or 9 LOs that'll show up for each one. And he'll get on there every time and tell every one of them his playbook and nobody does it. And then I get on the call with my one-on-one guys. I'm like, hey, did you put that? No, I got this is the winning play. Like this really works. Like 52 deals. He closed more deals in the month of July then probably 80% of, or maybe even 90% of loan officers will close this year. Like 52 deals.
Well, it's funny. We do this every Friday, and every Friday we bring on coaches like yourself, or mainly producers who give away the playbook. And, I learned that years ago. Josh Metal was on the stage at Sales Mastery. He gave away his playbook. And I'm like, dude, aren't you nervous about that? And he's like, no, I don't think most people are going to do what it is that I said I was willing to do. And it's not that hard to do either. And so, it's funny. I've always shared what I do. I think we're so fortunate in this community of people who come on and say they're doing things like what your client's doing. And so the question that you all have to ask yourself is, am I willing to do something differently, think differently? And so that doesn't mean you can't figure out how to do it in a different market, or how would it work? What would have to be true in order for it to work in your market, and who's that target person? Where do the investors hang out? How can I do it? I spent my first 2 years going with my friend who was a property manager to the Arizona Real Estate Investors Association, as RIA. We would go every month and we worked as RIA together. He was looking for people who wanted to buy or sell or have a manage, and I was looking for people who wanted to buy or refinance investment properties. And that's how I built in my first year. It's a funny number. I did 52 transactions in my first year. And this guy did it in a month. And so, but I hustled. I had to go out there and hustle to do it. And so there's opportunities today. You just have to look and figure out what that opportunity is for you.
And here's the thing, Todd, the 3 of us on this call right now, if what we're doing right now all disappeared, and we had to go to a new city and start over, we'd crush it because that's what we do, dude. Like we would figure it out. We'd go do the work that's required to win at a high level, and we wouldn't stop until we did. Like everybody, there's so many people have excuses on why they're not doing something. Just like you said, oh, that won't work in my market. Well, who told you that? Who told you that? Did you just tell yourself that? Or did someone else tell you, hey, that won't work in your market? Here's something that will work in your market. And I don't care what market you're in. If you're not doing business with financial advisors, you're crazy. I built my whole first business on financial advisors. When I first started originating, I had 0 people, 0 realtors. It was all financial advisors, right? How many financial advisors have you talked to in the last year about non-QM products?
Not enough.
Because none, probably. You're always worried about, oh, these financial advisor clients, they need the best rate. And I'm concerned about that. How many of them can't prove their income? How many private bankers have you gone and talked to? I have another client that he built this whole business in the last few years, going and talking to private bankers at Wells Fargo, Chase, and other places and getting referrals from them. His average loan size is over $1 million. He does all non-QM business. It's over $1 million average loan size. And his referrals all come from banks and financial advisors at banks where they can't do these deals for people, right? I'm a business owner. I own multiple companies. Guess what I can't prove? I can't prove my income, nor do I want to, right? So you're missing the opportunity. It's sitting right in front of you. You just have to go do it and be different, be bold, right? The fortune rewards the bold. You have to be bold in what you're trying to do.
You know, it's so funny you share that because I moved to a different city. So I had moved from Dallas to Houston. I had a 3-2-1-year-old. I was pregnant with my 4th and due in 30 days. And my husband came home and said, I just got my dream job offer. I'm going to be a head coach, but we have to move to Houston. And in my mind, I'm like, we got to sell a home, buy a home, new OBGYN, which I was basically a celebrity in that office because I kept pregnant year after year. Not trying, by the way. And I was told I would never be able to have children, but that's a different
You're a
story.
celebrity here too, Deb. You're a celebrity here too.
But I didn't realize, like, I outproduced myself and had my best year in Houston. And it was largely due to this limiting belief that I had while I was in Dallas of when I meet with agents or clients, are they going to ask me, are you the mortgage nerd? Because every time I would go somewhere, they would be like, oh, the mortgage nerd. And I'd be like, no, I'm the Byrd. And so that was getting in my way. And when I went to Houston, and even though I was about to pop, and then when I did pop, I was like pumping and driving and going places with my kid on my back. And it's like I had no fear because I wasn't worried that I was going to be compared to somebody. And lo and behold, once I moved back to Dallas, like that, once I could remove that belief, it was like I was free to be my best self. And I was allowing that to get in my way. But had I not moved and really isolated and figured that out, who knows where I'd be today. So
Yeah.
very true point.
Yeah, the power of belief is a very dominant force in our life, right? Whether we put a belief in our head or someone else gives us limiting beliefs. You know, I'm sure a lot of you look at reports and you see all these numbers and you see this guy doing 100 million or 200 or a billion or whatever that is. All of us on this call right here, Todd and Deborah, we've all met most of these people. There's not really a lot special about them. They're not like Tony Robbins. Right? Again, they're just consistent in what they do, and they found a process to be a little bit different than everybody else and go for it. And they're themselves. They're themselves. Like one of my good friends I talked to the other night. I don't know, I'm sure he's been on before, JJ Mazza. Like, if you saw JJ Mazza, like do you think he'd run a $3 billion region? If you first see JJ?
We love JJ. He's on the board of First Home IQ,
Yeah.
historically our biggest donor, and he's always been a great friend of the show. And Deborah and I hosted him in our Exactly What to Say 2-day certification. He was great, and he has a Philadelphia Eagles tattoo. So right there, I knew he and I were brothers from the start.
Yeah. But I mean, like, he's different, right? He's created something different in Southern California. He's flown me out to speak at his event. It's been incredible, right? But he's a different guy. We're all different. Quit trying to be like everybody else. Like, you guys can see the book on the wall behind me, One Jordan, right? And One Jordan was a strategy that I used to get into rooms I shouldn't have been in, right? I was never invited to, just by sending that one shoe and a note. That made me different, right? That got me a lot of the clients I have today. But I've met people through those relationships. But you all have that opportunity to go do something different today. You all do. Stop telling yourself I'm 50. I was 20 years. God, I want to do the work again. Well, here's the thing, and this may hurt your feelings, but if you're saying that, that means you haven't been doing the work for a long time.
Mm.
You haven't been doing it for a long time. You stopped a long time ago doing the work if you feel that way right now. Because if you would have done the work, there's lots of guys that are 50 or ladies that are 50 out there that are closing record years right now because they just kept doing the work.
Well, so even your client who did the 52 deals last month, like I'm sure when he first started those live events, he may have had like 5 people show up, right?
Yeah.
Like, and for a couple of months in a row, where like it took a while to build that momentum. Do you feel like most try something like once or twice and they're like, oh, it's not going to work for me,
Well,
and so they give up too soon, or do
of
they
course
even try?
and you know this from social media. Well, I put one post out there and I didn't get any business, Deborah. Right. When we were at the Ford event recently, there was a guy who was interviewed on stage, and I can't remember his name now, but yeah. And he was on Diary of a CEO. And he said that people don't see you online until they've seen you 12 times, So if you're going to run an event, the cut caffeine cash flow, BR event, whatever, it doesn't count till you run it the 12th time. Then look and see what you've done. Right. I mean,
I think that's hard though, right? I mean, people do it once, twice, and then they feel like, oh gosh, this is rough. But I mean, think about that for Dave and I, right? When we started this 10 years ago, we had less than 10 people showing up, but we still did it. We showed up every week, and here we are now, and we're really fortunate to get, hundreds and thousands of views to the videos now, and now the podcast. And so we've been really fortunate, but we put in the time to get here. And I think that's always it. And then there's a lot of things I always think, gosh, I wish I did that. And then I know I'm not getting that result because, I haven't chosen to make that the thing that I'm going to do, right? I view it as a choice, right? I can choose today. What am I going to do in the next bit? Am I going to, jump on, I'll pick on Deborah and social media. I don't jump on TikTok, but my kid did send me a TikTok video. I was like, oh, that's amazing. I can watch TikTok. I got sucked in. You can choose what you can choose what you look at. I haven't read my email yet today. Other people are still reading their email and reacting to that and haven't done their proactive things. And so I think it's the whole idea around intentionality. And I do like what you say is, again, it kind of hurts. It's a slap in the face for some of us that if we're feeling that way, maybe we just haven't been putting in the work.
Yeah. And if it hurts, then you definitely haven't been putting in the work. I mean, it's that saying that how can you be upset about the results you're not getting from the work you haven't done? Right. Like, how can you be mad about it? I mean, I look at that and I see just these mega producers out there. And if you talk to them, they've pivoted, they've done different things, they've reinvented themselves multiple times, but they've always showed up and put in the work, whether they wanted to or not. Right. And look, I have a podcast. I've had a podcast for almost 4 years. I think we've done 84 one hand at a time episodes and like maybe 20 Freestyle Friday episodes. And I get maybe like 20 to 30 people an episode downloaded, but I'm not going to stop doing it. I enjoy doing it. If I get one download, I'm okay. Maybe one day I'll get to 300 episodes and then all of a sudden it'll take off. If it does, it does. But I'm still going to show up. I have a diagnosis and it's called delusional optimism, right? I'm a delusional optimist. And I believe wherever you put me, I'm going to find a way to figure it out. And I'll give you an example of that. Last November, well, about a year ago, I started training, but last November I was in Dallas, Texas, and I did High Rocks event in Dallas. And I'm a 53-year-old one-armed man. I have no business being in the High Rocks event in Dallas, Texas, but I did it to prove I could do it. Right. And I walked in, I believed I could win this thing when I walked in. I didn't walk in thinking I wasn't going to finish or whatever, but I went through all of it. And I drew from the adversity backpack. When I fell down and was laying face first on the turf, right? Like I drew from other things to get the strength to get through and push through. And I finished. And not only did I finish, I won my division. Like what? Like I got first place in my division. So like I share that with you, not because I'm trying to brag, but I'm just telling you, like, if you believe you can do it and put in the work, you can get there. If you're 50, right? If you're a 50-year-old right now and you're struggling in the business, where do you really want to be? Do you want to be done in 10 years? Because guess what? You can do that in this business if you put in the work, right? Or do you want to give up? It's okay. They're hiring greeters at Walmart. You can go do that if that's what you want to do. But don't give up on what you've built.
Yeah, I love that. I put a note here for the people live. I mean, High Rocks, that's badass. Congrats on that.
Thank
I
you.
have a limiting belief, you got to push and pull those sleds, and I'm like, yeah, that's not good for my back. But I'm super. I love that you're doing that. But I think it's like anything else, right? I mean, it's you got to choose to do the work. You didn't just show up at High Rocks without being prepared. You said, hey, I'm going to show up at that event in Dallas, and however many months were in between there, you figured out what was the training regimen I had to do to get there. And
Yeah.
we all know in the mortgage business, it's actually pretty easy to figure out what you need to do to close a transaction, how many people you need to call and talk to or meet with in order to get there. And I think most people just haven't really thought through that. And so, going back to your, comment around consistency, how do you encourage people to really focus on, those priorities first before they allow themselves to get distracted by everything else?
Yeah. So I have this routine I do called the undefeated morning. I started doing it during COVID, and I was the chief sales officer for the mortgage company when COVID hit. And overnight, I became the pipeline manager because we quadrupled in size in a matter of 30 days. And we thought we were planning on shutting down for 6 months, right? We were ready for all this stuff. And all of a sudden, we're doing all these loans. So I was working 7 days a week running my pipeline, like literally, like that's what I was doing, is running a pipeline. And what I noticed is I would get up around 5 a.m. and instead of going to the gym and working out, I would grab my phone and I would look at the phone and I'd look at all these emails from underwriting and from LOs and from title companies and everything else. And then I would look up and it'd be 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. And I had missed my wife going to work. I'd missed the morning, and I tried to take on the world's problems. So now I have a strict routine in the morning when I get up. I haven't checked my emails yet, Todd. It's 12:41. It's 12:41 Eastern
So yeah,
time.
you're more disciplined at that than I
Now,
am.
now I do have Taylor, the best assistant on the planet. Don't try to poach her anybody, but best assistant on the planet. If there was a red flag, something, she would have called me. But I go through my routine in the morning. It's I get up, I have a gratitude thing that I do. I get in my cold plunge, I journal, I read, I work out, all before I pick up my phone. Because like, you're no good if you don't take care of yourself before you try to help anybody else. You're no good. So if I'm 5 or 6-0 before I pick up the phone, it's going to be really hard to turn my day into a crappy day. So my days run undefeated.
Okay, so the flip side for the overachievers that are tuning in that could borderline be addicted to the success and the results and more every year.
Yeah, yeah.
Or I'm looking at myself for a time period where I was probably stuck in the warrior, like I identified as the warrior.
Yeah.
At what point is there red flags where you should like stop and pause and look at total performance of where is this addiction for ambition almost costing you?
Yeah, as the first thing I would do as a parent is see how my kids are reacting to what I'm doing.
Mm.
What are my kids catching from me? Right? Like my 2-year-old, if I sit on the couch next to him, and yes, I have a 2-year-old, my kids are 33, 27, and 2.5. And sometimes I'll grab my phone when he's watching whatever he's watching, and he will knock the phone out of my hand. So if you're in the warrior mode and you're fighting, you're trying to do all these things, who's looking up to you? What kind of example are you setting for them? Right? Is that the kind of example you want to set for them? And I know you, Deborah, well enough to know you're a great mom. And the answer is no, you don't want to be that way. Right? So that's the red flag I would look for. And if you don't have kids, then what does your team think about you? Right? What does your family think about you? And what do you think about yourself? Is that all I do is work?
I think we learn a lot through the eyes of our children. And,
Yes.
it just really reminds me there is a superpower right now as you're talking about loan officers building relationships with others. And, hopefully y'all have, some people around you, whether that's friends or a spouse or significant other or kids. And I think there's really power in just being present. And it's really been a focus of mine, lately, because I think we all hit these points where, right, we're distracted by something that's, pulling us into this little thing in our pocket that we call a phone that's, mini computer now. And a huge brain of its own. And so it's got me definitely a lot thinking about the times where, yes, I'm sitting near a family member and I pull out my phone instinctively for whatever reason to look at something that's super unimportant, but then also showing them maybe that they're not as important, their presence around me in my conversation, or even if I'm just sitting there quietly with them, that something else is more important. So I like that. I like that reminder. I like it that your kids are brave enough to kick the phone out of your hand.
That's because 2-year-olds are honest.
Yeah,
Like they'll just.
Yeah, he don't care. Like he knows, and he's not afraid of me. What am I going to do? He's like, you're not going to do anything, Dad. Like,
So
Yeah.
with the title of this being the adversity paradigm, building your capacity for what's next. And I know we're about almost in the fourth quarter. Is there anything that you want to share specifically of identifying the what's next and how to make sure, like, are there steps to go through at building that capacity to achieve that?
Well, I think that the biggest lesson from all of that is that adversity is the requirement for growth. We're not going to grow with a good foundation without going through some adversity to get there, right? And you can think about that. Like, we can go back through and think about all the things we've gone through. What lesson did I learn, right? What kind of foundation? Am I building my business on a foundation of adversity we've overcome, or am I building on a foundation of adversity we've avoided? So one's built on rock and foundation stone, and the other one's built on sand. Which one do you want? And it's in another part of the book, and is this thing called the Adversity Accelerator. And the Adversity Accelerator says that you put yourself in adverse situations on purpose, right? Intentional adversity is created in your life so you're prepared for the next time life blindsides you, right? So having those tough conversations, which I know a lot of leaders in the mortgage space are struggling with having tough conversations with their people right now because they're afraid.
Like which conversations? Like production wise, or?
Yeah, production wise, being held accountable to a standard, right? What are you really doing? You're complaining because you're only closing 3 loans. Okay, well, how much work are you really putting in? How many people are you touching a day? Right. The great thing about the mortgage business is that you can kind of run your day how you want. The worst thing about the mortgage business is you can run your day how you want. Because if you don't have it in you to get the work done consistently, those are the results you're going to get. And you're going to lose to someone who's less talented than you all day long if they're willing to make the calls and you're not.
So how do you coach leaders through that if they're avoiding those conversations, likely because they don't foster the lead?
So I have this thing called the Christmas tree theory. I have a lot of theories, so, and it could be, but just the Christmas tree is the easiest part of it to understand. We should make decisions as a leader on how they're going to affect the people I sit around the Christmas tree with on Christmas morning first. So if I have people that aren't showing up and that are not doing their job, it's ultimately affecting me and my family too. So we have to have conversations from that angle, right? And I'm not saying go be mean and yell and scream at people, because that's all over. That's back when I was younger. That's how they treated us. But like, when you hold people to a standard of accountability, and that's the one, and you live up to that as a leader, this is the only option they have, right? I've got one of my clients who does 8 to 10 million a month, and we had to clean some house recently, and he let go of 11 people in his organization because they weren't showing up the way they should show up, right? They weren't living up to what it took to be part of this organization. And a lot of us operate out of fear. Well, if I tell this person that's doing 3 deals a month that they need to do more, they may leave. Good. Oh, what if we lose 30 deals a year? So good. Because everybody else around you in your organization sees you're putting up with this low level person. It just lowers the bar for everybody. The second part of that is when we look at culture of an organization, we don't adapt our culture to fit our people. Our people need to adapt to fit the culture. And too many times during COVID, I was chasing it the wrong way. Oh, we needed a processor so bad, but she could only work till 2, but would get back online at 8 and had all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, just hire her anyways. And then all of a sudden, all my other processors were like, I want to work till 2. Like, it turns into this whole thing, right? So we were chasing we're chasing people like we shouldn't have. We should have a standard of how we run, of how we show up as leaders. And it should reflect in our people that want to be there with us.
Do you remember the stat I think it was Vanessa from Forward who shared when you are around higher producers or when the standard is raised versus being around those who lowered the standard. Do you remember that?
I think it was 25%. I
Okay.
think it was 25%. That it was 15% if you're around higher producing people, but
It
if you were
raises
around lower producing people, you went down 25%. So it was even more counterintuitive when it went the other way. Yeah.
Mm.
Love Vanessa. She's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. If you all feel the FOMO that I felt of not going to Forward, I'll make sure we put in the show notes here a link to the Win Now episode where Deborah Byrd did a deep dive, did a lot of homework. It was actually one of our longer episodes where she walked through her top takeaways from Forward. So we talked about a lot of these things. And I think it's really important. You know, you mentioned the word standard, and I do think people have to have personal standards. I don't know, Deborah, if you were on the call way back when, I think this was, gosh, it had to be more than 5 years ago. You know, we really did a deep dive, Dave and I, into standards, and we had Andrew Paul, a loan officer who's a Navy SEAL, just a super good dude, and we really talked through the standards of being a Navy SEAL and what the military brings, and they've just got standards. If you don't hit the standard, guess what? You don't make the cut. And so I think when you talk about leaders letting people go, I think the question you have to ask yourself as a loan officer is, are my standards high enough that if I was actually recruiting to build an all-star team of loan officers, would I actually recruit myself, or would I hope that somebody else picked me up because I'm not good enough for my own team?
Yep.
Well, no, I was doing some homework on you before this podcast and saw your one with Dustin Owen and talking about how, you know, in the sales industry, like if you didn't have enough wins, it was kind of like being a head football coach. You could be let go. And I was thinking about the leaders and the team leads, where if we had that same mentality, would you still be at your same company leading the same people, or would you have been let go for a lack of, you know, consistent wins? Which I think then goes back to how do you define a win and how do you win each day, which then starts with winning by noon. Right, Todd?
Yeah. Agreed.
I appreciate that, Deborah. Yes, you know, absolutely, for sure. I thought I interrupted you, Chris. You seemed like you had a thought coming.
No, well, I was just going to say that, no, I agree with Deborah 100%. And, you know, one of the questions I ask some of the leaders that I work with, I'm fortunate enough to work with some high-end people, high-level people inside some IMBs. And I'm like, would you work for you? Would you work for you? Right? Like would you work for you if you were the leader? And I think that's a powerful question. I ask myself that a lot. Would I want to be coached by me? And some days the answer is no. Some days I don't show up the way I should, right? But as a whole, I work really hard to want to be the coach that I would want to have had. The best coach I've ever had in my life is a guy named Bill Hart, right? And a dear friend of mine. I hope that one day I will be at the same level as Bill. But, you know, you have to look at that and evaluate it. And one of the questions I ask all the time is to people is what's working, what's not, where's my greatest area of opportunity? And if you're not looking at that on a weekly basis, how do you even know?
My last question before we end today is there anything that could be disguised as discipline that could truly be avoidance in some capacity that is a blind spot?
Oh, that's a really good question. That could be disguised as discipline.
Like a decision that maybe is being delayed because of the disguise of discipline.
So a decision that I'm not making because of some other thing I'm doing that I'm thinking is disciplined.
Mm-hmm. Or even just results that I'm not getting because I think I'm being disciplined, but I'm not getting, kind of like the busy being busy, but is it really productive and effective?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes to evaluating yourself on a weekly basis, what's working, what's not. We don't know those answers until we actually look at it, right? So I can be busy and do nothing. I could literally be busy and accomplish zero all day long. So I've got a strict set of things that I do every day. I mean, even as a guy who's running a coaching business, I have what are called POCs, point of contacts. I reach out to speaking opportunities. We still message speaking events, like hundreds of speaking events a year, and we get no's. Like we just still do that, right? And I still message clients and I stay in front of those things where I could just do nothing. We've got a great client roster. We've got some good speaking events. I could do nothing and hope things keep working out, but that's not who I am. And how could I lead people and coach people if that's what I did?
I have a lot of clients that are so invested in AI that are spending a lot of time creating these AI systems and workflows. And at the end of the day, I'm like, but you still have to have clients to then run the ball or run the play. Like, how much
Yeah.
time are we spending building the system when
Yeah.
we're not spending enough time doing the POCs?
The cool thing is in a couple weeks, I've got Todd Duncan on my podcast, right? Which is, to me, is like incredible, right? One of the coolest things ever. And I'm going to ask Todd, would you please rewrite the book Time Traps? I think we need an updated version of Time Traps. One of the best books I've ever read. Like, I used it so much when I first got in the business, but I would like to see him recreate the book Time Traps with the AI trap, with the social, like, and so we could put that back in people's hands.
Keep me posted on that. I want to know what he says.
I will for sure.
Well, I think it's so interesting, Deb, because you and I've talked about the people going down the AI rabbit hole, and I'm guilty of that as well. I think the primary difference for me is as I do my most important priorities first. So yesterday, my mother was coming into town, and I was the volunteer to pick her up at the airport, and her flight was an hour earlier than I thought it was. And so literally what I did was I made sure that I made my outbound contacts. I did it earlier than I would normally do it, but I just cranked those out to make sure that I got stuff in motion before I went to the airport, picked up my mom, took her to lunch, because I knew I was going to lose a few hours there. And so it's the whole idea of making sure you do those first priorities first. It's the idea of scheduling on time, right? Because I too, like you, Chris, was coached by Bill Hart. What a gift. And I just knew that if I actually scheduled the time to work on my business, and the problem is, I think what you're saying, Deb, is your clients are prioritizing that first before doing the activities that actually need to be done proactively to grow your business or at least maintain your business. And so that's what I would encourage y'all to think about. What are the activities I need to do today or maybe tomorrow, if you're listening to this at the end of the day, in order to make sure that I get those things done first before I go? What would it have looked like if I wasn't picking up my mom? I would have gone on a little longer run. So I didn't get as much personal time. And then I wouldn't have just cranked through those quite as fast. But it's Bill talks about it in the by noon effect. It's Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law is that time that activities expand to fill the time available. So I had shorter time, but I crushed it. I wasn't on my team call this morning where we report our numbers, but there's a high chance that I did more activity in that 30-minute burst that I did than a lot of my team members did all day, because I was so laser focused to make sure I got it done. And so I think it's this whole opportunity that we have, right? We're gifted with 1,440 minutes every day. We got to sleep through a lot of those, but ultimately in the end, you get to choose where you go. And I think that, you talked about it, Chris, if you can be undefeated in your morning routine, right? For me, I call that winning by noon. And if you can figure out how to be undefeated on the things that are your standards, those top priorities, then honestly, it doesn't matter what you do the rest of the day. I mean, I still had some commitments in the afternoon, some appointments that I had to jump on, but I actually got enough activity done in the day to get 2 leads, to get the things going, that I actually could have just taken the rest of the day and sat at the beach. That's not my mom's jam. She wanted to go shopping, so I let my daughters take that role.
Yeah.
All right, so we got just a couple minutes, Chris. So take us home. What's your final comments and final ask of our crew?
Gosh, do the adversity capacity index. I saw there was the link there was something wrong with the link. Hopefully it's fixed by now, but take a chance and look at that. The book's going to be out later this year. If you don't follow me on social media, I'm one hand on Instagram for obvious reasons. And I post a lot of the stuff we have going on there. And if you're looking to talk more about coaching or looking for a speaker, chriswelton.live is where all my everything is stored. So you can check me out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deborah.
I just circled, and the biggest thing I keep coming back to is, what is a problem that you're facing today that may actually be the assignment? And so after you listen to this, instead of taking, I still take paper notes. I know I'm also recording this, but I believe in taking notes. It helps crystallize it in the brain. But instead of leaving with just a page of notes, what's the one small uncomfortable action you could then take to help get over that quote problem and make it the architect of your assignment, to help create the next version of you to carry the load that is likely ahead?
Oh, I can't even top that. That was so good. I would just say, okay, add to that. What's the one uncomfortable call that you're putting off that you need to make, and make that call? Who's that real estate agent that you think is untouchable that actually might take your call today? Who's that client who you've been putting off because you dropped the ball and you need to follow up with them? Just eat the frog, as as they would say, and make that happen. Chris Welton, it was an honor and pleasure to have you back on. I really enjoyed the conversation. Be on the lookout for Chris's new book when it comes out in the fall. And if like he said, if you're looking for someone to come in and talk to your organization, give a different perspective, give a little energy and charge, Chris is your guy. As always, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week here on the Loan Officer Mastermind. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thank you.